Let's start with Nurten and Tekin's storyline. In the scene where Nurten thanks her ex-husband for their daughter's wedding and says she can now die peacefully, the first alarm bell rings. This phrase looks like a conscious farewell. Most likely, in the next episode, we will see Tekin realize the true meaning of these words when the tragedy has already struck. Right after this conversation, Nurten faints in front of the guests. This sudden weakness confirms our fears. Given how suddenly she felt bad, it is logical to expect that in the next episode, her condition will begin to deteriorate rapidly, and it will no longer be possible to hide the truth from others. Coming to her senses, she categorically refuses to go to the hospital, blaming it all on ordinary fatigue. Such stubborn resistance directly hints that Nurten has known her terrible diagnosis for a long time. Because of this refusal, in the continuation, we will surely see how lost time will turn into irreparable consequences for her health. In parallel, Chetin's father gives him a photo album, parting him to fill it with happy moments. Against the backdrop of the impending tragedy with Esra's mother, this gift looks like bitter irony. It seems that further on, Chetin himself will have to become the main support for his wife, and the first pages of their family life will be filled with deep grief. In a funny scene where friends jokingly hit Chetin, according to local tradition, the tension subsides a bit. However, this episode shows how much Chetin is ready to endure for Ezra. After such a scene, we can expect that in the next episode, he will just as steadfastly take the blow from the upcoming bad news to protect his wife. Tekin receives well-deserved praise from his friends for being able to forgive his wife and marry off his daughter with dignity. This detail hints that Tekin will be the center of attention next. Most likely, his newfound nobility will be put to a cruel test when he realizes that he is losing Nurten forever. Meanwhile, real chaos begins in the coffee shop due to a sudden and anomalous cold snap. People panic, fearing for their harvest. This sudden weather change will clearly become the main plot driver. The most logical next step here is a massive crisis in the town, which will force everyone to look for urgent ways of salvation. But the town's main inventors have their own problems. Tanner receives a strict call from the space agency demanding an urgent report. Judging by his confusion, this obstacle will become a serious hindrance. In the next episode, the conflict is likely to escalate. The brothers will be caught between their duty to the agency and their duty to their fellow countrymen. Precisely because of this call, Tanner urges Vaisel to drop everything and rush to do the report. Their decision to ignore the approaching frost sounds like a fatal mistake. After such a conversation, we can expect that in the continuation, this haste will backfire on them, and the townspeople will perceive their detachment as a betrayal. Just how strong the frost is can be seen in a comical but dangerous scene, where Musa lights a fire in a bucket right in the middle of the room. This detail hints that further on, the cold will become unbearable. Most likely, in the next episode, we will see even more desperate and absurd attempts by the townspeople to keep warm, which could lead to new domestic disasters. Vaisel irritably dismisses the idea of using their heating vests, citing the urgency of the space report. This direct evasion of solving the problem looks like preparation for a blow to their reputation. It is logical to expect that further on this arrogance will backfire on the brothers when they realize that ambition turned out to be more important than people's needs. Let's return to Ezra's storyline. The scene where Nurten literally insists on her daughter leaving for a honeymoon looks very heavy. The mother is hiding her agony for the sake of her daughter's happiness. Judging by this reaction, it seems that in the next episode, when the truth comes out, Ezra will desperately blame herself for leaving. Chetin and Ezra leave, unaware of the impending disaster. Their joyful faces in the car sharply contrast with Nurten's condition. This departure will clearly leave them in a weak position. Most likely, further on this contrast will turn into a cruel disappointment, and their happy honeymoon will be interrupted in the most ruthless way. Meanwhile, the farmers come to grandfather Abdullah for advice, realizing that the harvest could perish. Their hopelessness sets the tone for the whole storyline. After such a desperate visit, we can expect that in the next episode, the tension in the town will reach its peak, and any attempts to save the crops will be perceived extremely sharply. Grandfather Abdullah promises to go up the mountain to find out nature's mood. By the way, if you like our reviews and want to see more such videos, Be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us in our work. Returning to Abdullah. His departure hints that nature's answer will be harsh. It is logical to expect his forecast in the next episode will only increase the general panic. On the mountain, Abdullah hears that nature is offended by people for their actions. This philosophical detail acts as a clear hint. Most likely, further on we will see how the heroes try to fix not only their agricultural problems, but also personal mistakes to earn forgiveness, which will lead to new confessions. Erkan complains that the fields are already covered with frost, and people are in despair. This specific fact confirms that there is no more time to hesitate. Judging by this scene, in the continuation, the conflict between those trying to save the harvest and those who give up will only escalate, creating a split among the farmers. Semil brings her husband a carefully prepared breakfast, but Vaisal doesn't even lift his head from the papers. This lack of attention sounds like a very hurtful slap. After such ignoring, we can boldly predict that in the next episode, Semil's resentment will pour out into decisive actions away from the kitchen. Semil's disappointed look speaks for itself. Her efforts are completely devalued. This exact scene looks like preparation for her own secret plan. The most probable move here is the wives uniting against their husband's arrogance. In the next episode, this storyline will come to the forefront. Seyfettin and Zeynep's storyline also cracks. Zeynep directly accuses him of thinking she is stupid, and suggests they remain just colleagues. After such a conversation, we can expect their relationship to abruptly change direction. Seyfettin will have to make a huge effort to break down the wall of distrust. Grandfather Abdullah returns from the mountain and confirms. The birds have flown away. The streams are frozen. Frost is inevitable. His words sound like a final verdict. Against this background, it is most logical to expect that in the next episode, the town will be gripped by real panic, and this will push people to the most risky decisions for salvation. An aggressive quarrel breaks out in the coffee shop over hot tea. Everyone's nerves are on edge. This small detail hints at how quickly social ties crumble in the face of a threat. It seems that further on, we will see even more conflicts on everyday grounds, where everyone will try to survive at any cost. Abdullah directly tells the farmers to save what can still be saved. This is no longer just advice, but a call to action. Because of this call, the formation of initiative groups is likely in the continuation. Someone will have to lead the rescue operation, and the struggle for leadership will launch a new conflict. The crowd of farmers makes a logical decision, to go for help to Tanner and Vaisal, the main inventors. This scene looks like the climax of their hopes. Most likely, in the next episode, this visit will become a point of no return. How the brothers meet the crowd will determine their reputation throughout the town. However, Tanner turns down his fellow countrymen, citing his preoccupation with the space report. This decision hits the farmers harder than the frost. After such a harsh refusal, we can expect the brothers' authority to collapse further on. Their attempt to justify themselves with paperwork will only intensify the conflict and turn the townspeople against them. Meanwhile, the inventors' wives discuss how the heating vest idea can be scaled to the size of a field. This brilliant thought is born directly out of resentment towards their husbands. Judging by this scene, in the next episode it is female ingenuity that will surface, and they will start a secret development. Semil resolutely declares, "Since the husbands have no time, it means we will do everything ourselves." This alliance promises to turn everything upside down. It is logical to expect that further on, this storyline will become central. The wives' attempt to fix everything in secret from their husbands will spin the intrigue and lead to dangerous situations in their workshop. Against the backdrop of common misfortune, the local businessman Kazim offers people farmhand work for a pittance. This scene shows who will try to profit from the crisis. After such a cynical proposal, we can predict that in the continuation, Kazim will go on the offensive, buying up other people's labor for cheap. Kazim openly declares that he built greenhouses precisely to earn money on the misfortune of others now. This detail hints at his complete ruthlessness. Most likely, further on his greed will only grow, and he will try to thwart any plan to save the harvest in order to remain a monopolist. Returning to Chetin and Ezra, their car stalls in the middle of a deserted road. This sudden breakdown ruins their plans for a happy vacation. From this reaction, it looks like they will face a serious test of endurance in the next episode. Their romantic trip will turn into a struggle for survival in the cold. They find an empty house, but Ezra doubts whether they should enter without permission. Her fear looks like a clear premonition of trouble. The most logical next step here is the appearance of an aggressive owner. In the next episode, this intrusion will surely provoke a conflict that will force Jettin to show his character. Back in the coffee shop, Selami brings a strange ointment for Rifat's balding head, assuring him it will bring back hair. This scene is a clear comedic setup. After such dubious experiments, we can safely expect that further on, the effect of the ointment will exceed all expectations, but not at all in the way they wanted. Rifat hides his bald spot under a silly hat and gets angry at any jokes. His nervousness shows how vulnerable he is. Apparently, in the continuation, his attempt to hide the problem will attract more attention, and the accidental application of Selami's ointment will become a real, uncontrollable curse for him. The husbands are left home alone, wondering where their wives have gone. This moment shows their complete helplessness in domestic matters. It is most logical to expect that in the next episode, their life without female control will quickly turn into chaos, and they will have to feel the full weight of household chores firsthand. Tanner overconfidently takes on ironing his son's uniform, promising to show his style. This detail hints at an inevitable failure. Most likely, further on we will see his technical genius crash against simple household tasks, and his attempt to fix things will only worsen the situation with the kids. As expected, the iron smokes, the uniform is ruined, and Tanner burns his foot. This scene looks like a complete fiasco. After such a failure, we can expect that in the next episode the husbands will finally admit their domestic incompetence and desperately start looking for ways to get their wives back home. Tanner calls Selma and lies that everything is fine at home. He cowardly avoids a direct answer about his failures. Precisely because of this lie, further escalation is likely in the continuation. When Selma returns and sees the mess, it will be a great excuse for the women to demand respect. Sen-Nur catches the wives sewing thermal blankets and is very surprised by their secrecy. This scene looks like a threat of exposure. It seems that further on the women will have to cut Sen-Nur in or bribe her. Otherwise, the secret plan will reach the husbands prematurely, ruining the whole intrigue. Sen-Nur promises to keep quiet, but her sly look says otherwise. This detail hints at a possible information leak. The most probable move here? Sen-Nur will accidentally slip up in town, and it is through her that the secret of the women's developments will fall into the hands of the main enemy, Kazim. Rifat wakes up, and we see that the ointment worked too well. He has turned into a real werewolf with wild vegetation. After this scene, we can expect that in the next episode, his appearance will cause panic in the town, and he himself will open a cruel hunt for Selami. Rifat rushes at Selami, screaming for reprisal. Their comedic conflict is clearly not closed. Judging by this aggressive reaction, further on we will see a long chase all over the town, which will comically interrupt the main dramatic storyline of saving the harvest, bringing chaos to the townspeople's ranks. Tana falls asleep from exhaustion right on the cold floor next to the baby. This fact confirms that the husbands are completely broken by household chores. It is logical to expect that in the continuation, this crisis will force Tanner to reconsider his priorities and understand that his scientific ambitions are nothing without a reliable family rear. Vicel and Tanner complain to each other about the hard lot of women and the lack of help. This scene is their complete capitulation. Most likely, further on they will decide to follow their wives to find out what important things they are doing, and their discovery will become a turning point in relationships. Tanner opens the geo-tracker on his phone and sees that their wives are in an abandoned workshop. This detail hints at an impending face-to-face confrontation. After this decision, we can expect that the husbands will burst into the workshop at the most inopportune moment, and their attempt at control will spill over into an open argument. The husbands indeed find their wives at work and are bewildered seeing their project. Their reaction is full of skepticism. Judging by this scene, in the next episode, the women will have to not only finish the invention, but also fiercely prove their competence to their husbands, defending their right to independence. Vicel advises the women to go home and sit like queens, clearly belittling their labor. This arrogant statement will only add fuel to the fire. It is most logical to expect that further on, this phrase will backfire on him when the female invention saves the whole town and the husbands are left with nothing. Returning to the cabin. The furious owner Salim points a gun at Chetin, accusing him of kidnapping his daughter. This pressure scene pushes the situation to the limit. It seems that further on, Chetin will have to show incredible restraint to calm the old man and prevent bloodshed in front of Esra. Looking closely, Salim realizes that Esra is not his daughter Seher. His anger gives way to the old man's bitter disappointment. This detail opens a new plot wound. Most likely, in the next episode, having learned Salim's tragic story, Chetin and Esra will decide to help him find his real daughter, which will significantly delay them. The mothers come to the workshop to see their daughters-in-law and, contrary to expectations, do not scold them but support them. This generational alliance looks very inspiring. After such a scene, we can predict that the female coalition will become indestructible, and they will begin mass production of blankets in record time. The mother's words that they shouldn't abandon what they started for the sake of saving the townspeople give the girls strength. This support acts as a powerful catalyst. It is logical to expect that further on this unity will help them withstand possible sabotage attempts by Kazim. And here is Kazim. He treacherously locks Taner and Vaisel in an abandoned hangar so they cannot interfere with his profit plans. This threat is realized. Judging by this scene, in the next episode the brothers will be trapped, and their inability to come to the rescue will force them to rethink their recent actions. Kazim gloats and promises to burn the stockpile of women's blankets so that his greenhouses remain a monopoly in the market. This plan looks like preparation for a major disaster. The most probable move here is an arson attempt, which will elevate the conflict to a criminal level and unite the town against the businessman. Meanwhile, Chetin finds out from the locals where old Salim's daughter lives. This fact confirms their intention to intervene. After this conversation, we can expect that further on the couple will find Sheher and try to convince her to forgive her father, which will be a strong emotional test for Esra herself. The women go out to the square and successfully demonstrate their life-saving thermal blanket to the townspeople. Their triumph is obvious. Against this backdrop, it is most logical to expect that in the next episode, the townspeople will start buying up these covers en masse, and the authority of the inventor husbands will finally fade before the practicality of the female mind. The locked brothers guess Kazim's devious plan and realize that their wives' lives are in danger. This scene is the peak of their despair. Most likely, further on they will use all their engineering genius to break out of the trap and rush to intercept Kazim, trying to save the town. Nurten's storyline reaches a terrifying finale. Talon informs Taken that time is running out. This pressure scene leaves no chance for a miracle. It seems that further on, Taken will face the hardest task, telling Chetin about this so he can bring Esra for a final farewell to her mother. Chetin indeed finds Sheher and deceives her by saying that her father is on his deathbed. This forced lie sounds like a desperate attempt to reconcile the family. Precisely because of this deception, a tense reunion is likely in the continuation, where Sheher might sharply change her attitude upon realizing she was tricked into coming. Seher arrives at the cabin and tearfully falls to her knees before her father. The finale of this storyline is clearly left for the continuation. Judging by the old man's touching reaction, further on this conflict will be closed, and their reconciliation will serve as a powerful reminder for Ezra of the importance of time spent with parents. Ezra sincerely thanks Chetin for not abandoning the old man and helping them reunite. This detail shows the depth of their trust. After such words, we can boldly expect that in the next episode, this trust will undergo the cruelest test via a terrible phone call from the hospital. And this call rings. His brother informs Chetin that Nurten is dying. His grief-stricken face speaks for itself. The most logical next step here is that Chetin will have to shatter Ezra's happy smile with this news. Their honeymoon is over. A hard journey back lies ahead. Chetin honestly confesses to Ezra that her mother is in critical condition. This scene looks like preparation for a major emotional blow. Most likely, further on, Ezra will fall into a state of shock and guilt, and the entire next episode will be permeated with her desperate attempts to make it in time to say her last words to her mother. Kazim gives the order to burn down the new warehouse where the women move the blankets. His threats turn into real action. Because of this order, a night confrontation in the continuation, where the townspeople will fight off the fire to protect their supplies, and Kazim himself will finally cross the line of the law. Baisel miraculously picks the hanger lock using Samil's metal hairpin. This ironic detail confirms that even in their escape, women helped them. Judging by this reaction, further on the brothers will make it to the warehouse at the very last moment and engage in a direct physical altercation with Kazim's men. Ezra runs into the hospital in tears to her mother's bedside. This finale of Nurten's storyline breaks the heart. It is most logical to expect that in the next episode we will see the heavy consequences of this farewell. Ezra might withdraw into herself, and Taken will be left alone with his belated love. Nurten passes away, having managed to give her daughter her final blessing. Her death will leave a huge void in the family. After such a tragic denouement, we can predict that further on this loss will greatly change Ezra herself. Her relationship with Jetin will either become much stronger against the backdrop of grief or suffer a dangerous crack. Meanwhile, the women see smoke. The warehouse with the blankets is burning. Kazim's attempt to destroy everything has almost succeeded. Judging by this panic scene, in the next episode the whole town will rush to put out the fire, and this will become the main test of unity. Tension over the saved harvest will reach its peak. Baisel and Tanner heroically run out of the smoke, saving the last bales of blankets. This moment looks like their long-awaited redemption. Most likely, further on this act will help them regain their wives' trust, but part of the production will still be lost, forcing the townspeople to share the warmth with each other. The husbands openly admit they were wrong and thank their wives for their perseverance and intelligence. This scene is a complete truce. Closer to the finale, it is especially noticeable that the balance of power in the families will change forever. The women have proven their independence, and the husbands will have to reckon with them as equals. In the final monologue, Samil reflects on the fact that the meaning of life lies in caring for others. These words sum up the whole episode. Putting together the picture of the next episode, with a high probability we can expect the main conflict to be the town's revival after the fire. At the center will be the women who proved their strength, and Ezra, who will have to search for meaning anew after a terrible loss.